Good evening, everybody. Thank you very much to IEG for their hospitality. Thank you very much to all of you for coming here and to our panelists. This is one of the events that are going to take place in 2023. And these are the results of the POC 341 cluster network. That has a purpose of defining, analyzing global trends and competitive contexts for the aggregated entities of this project. This afternoon's talk is specifically related to an aggregation project referring to two jewelry companies that are represented here with us, participating at Vicenza Oro. And during our seminar, an analysis will be presented that has been carried out by the spin-off of Cà Foscari University in Venice that will illustrate the reference context for the competitive positioning of Made in Italy jewels. Right, let me introduce our guests. We have the president, Mr. Piero Marangon, owner of Nanis and president of the Sistema Oreficeria Jewelleria for Confartigianato Vicenza and Veneto, Mr. Giovanni and Professor Gomiero of Strategy Innovation, and we have remotely connected with us Mr. Gabriele Musto, the secretary of the Italian-Guatemalan Chamber of Commerce, who is connected from Guatemala City. Good evening, Gabriele.
Vi ringrazio ancora.
So thank you very much again, and I would like now to leave the floor to President Marangon. Good evening, everybody. I am just a simple craftsman. Being a craftsman today seems to be belonging to an extinction category. There are 370 craftsmen companies in Vicenza and 1,300 in the whole of the Veneto region. So we're here at this wonderful exhibition, and I have to say that the feeling I have is that we have come to a period of almost normality. So this exhibition, this fair, can actually be defined as a new fair of the new post-pandemic period, and I hope that from now onwards it will only be downhill and we won't re-experience what we have gone through in the last 2 years. We need fairs. Craftsmen need fairs. Groups of companies need fairs, and the Chamber of Commerce and the Association of Craftsmen, the region with the 3.1 competition, as Sara Ferretti has just explained. Well, all these are extremely important initiatives. These aggregations are fundamental, especially for small enterprises that would not otherwise be able to tackle the international markets. Undoubtedly, in the industry of jewelry, there are significant exporters. We export more than 80% of our production, so we have to tackle international markets in a structural way. Being part of a network, clustering companies together to go beyond the borders of our nation is something extremely important for us. So, compliments to all the initiatives organized by the region and the Chamber of Commerce. I do not want to steal too much time away from you because I know that Mr. Gomiero and Mr. Carrera are going to tackle very important issues. So I would like to leave the floor to them so that we can continue with our program. Thank you. Right. The presentation, please. There we go. Thank you. Well, we have carried out an analysis of the global context. I mean, we have focused on the luxury market to be able to talk about jewelry. But we have started from a much wider angle. We do not have much time, therefore I will have to be brief, but there are some important questions that we have tried to find an answer for. The survey we have carried out is based on the following questions, which are also somewhat provocatory, rhetorical, realistic, debatable. So these are the main points. The market. Is the market changing compared to the past? Has the pandemic brought about any changes? And are these changes going to be permanent? Second question, or second theme, the Made in Italy brand and the Italian style. Does this still work abroad? And is this perceived in a similar way by everybody? E-commerce. We all know that e-commerce is expanding in every possible industry. The pandemic has amplified a trend which was already going strong. And we want to know whether this is true also for jewels. We want to know whether this is a rewarding strategy. Then we have the very interesting challenge, a challenge to all of us, sustainability. Does sustainability affect this industry as well? And then, following what Piero said, brand versus unbrand. Does it work? How is this ratio changing? And is there a specific demand by the market? And to grab possible changes, shall we get together? We know that unbranded products are the biggest part of the market. Right, let's analyze all the different points, starting from the first one, the international context. Online sale of luxury product. Right, the market is growing very well. The growth rate is enormous, extremely interesting for the next 10 years, so we're all happy about that. Right, we all deserve a round of applause for this. So there has been a growth in 2021. This growth will continue in 2022. And what is emerging in the luxury market is that increase in sales has been pushed forward by digitization and by the digital channels. Specifically, and we will see this on some geographical markets, well, the geographic market that is growing most right now is China. And China has a sales model that is strongly related to the digital channels. We have some influencers. Now, you can see this also here at the fair. There are these jewel influencers that actually push the sales. And this clashes against the traditional model of sales, especially in our area here in Vicenza. This is very far away from our traditional model. All luxury sectors are growing, but jewelry is also growing significantly. And there is a change, a social change. Society is changing, the perception of jewelry is changing. In the past, jewels were appreciated for their intrinsic value. We often hear about gold as a refuge investment, as a shelter investment, but today we know that the connection between fashion and jewelry is closer and closer and stronger. So jewels are no longer viewed just as an investment, but as something that you can wear that represents your status symbol.
Abbiamo anche guardato.
Well,
we will see a slide about that in a while. So we have seen that there are two segments of the market which are growing. That is a high-range market and the lower range. And the intermediate ranges are stable, while these two opposite poles are actually growing. Another issue which is very fashionable and very present is sustainability. The role of jewels has changed also from a demographic viewpoint because also the classes of buyers have changed. Well, perhaps in the past it was older people who bought jewels, while now there are younger generations who are interested in jewels. And let's look at the Chinese market, for example, where we see that there is a stronger and stronger attitude to buying jewels by young people. And they are used to buying online. So this is the slide that I mentioned earlier. It's a BCG survey carried out in 2019, and it is, however, appropriate also for our days. Many of you know that up to 2019 there was a certain trend, and then 2020, 2021 there was a sort of a cloud, but then we started off again, even better perhaps than before. So the trends that we see is that there is a strong growth in the brand market as compared to the non-branded market, and you see the partition of the share. There is a growth in the Chinese market as compared to the other markets. In general, the Asian markets are growing, and very high range and low range markets are growing, while the intermediate segments remain more or less stable. Now, if we look at the local market, that is Vicenza, which is very much characterized by small companies, crafts companies. Well, we spoke about digitalization, sustainability, international presence. Well, actually, these are challenges that are difficult to tackle, above all by small companies. Apart from the fact that gold is subjected to fluctuations, well, it is pretty stable, but it's starting to grow, and this generates a certain level of uncertainty in the market for medium to big brands. Just imagine what can happen for smaller companies which buy things in order to sell them. So can this social class or commercial class, this trade class, can it tackle such challenges? Well, in absolute terms, we see that the trend is going down in terms of numbers of shops. So this is a question that we should try and find an answer to. Now, these are the key points of this survey. We see that the luxury market is growing, almost $38 billion in 2020. It will grow by 8.8% up to 2030. So by 2030, we will have about $52 billion. Okay, that's fine. We are growing. Asia dominates this market, that is the luxury market, about 65% of the market, in particular with reference to premium jewels, that is a very top range of the market. Among the brands, there are brands which take up most of the market: Cartier, Tiffany, Bulgari. which have a higher value. And we see that consumers are increasingly preferring branded jewels. And this is due to various reasons, because you can actually build the stories. For example, in the case of sustainability, you can create sustainable brands which are recognized by the market. So it's small pieces which can be put together and give you a whole picture of the situation. Now, second question. Made in Italy and Italian style, do they still work? Well, there are various facets when we speak about made in Italy. And when we speak about made in Italy, we speak about all these aspects. We mean all these aspects. We mean the territory, which is very attractive, lifestyle, history, and culture. So we're speaking about manufacturing, about handcrafted products, and then aesthetics, an intrinsic attitude to aesthetics. And then that is per se a brand which is acknowledged abroad. However, abroad, all these the Made in Italy brand is interpreted in different ways. Well, I'll make the example of the US, but we analyze the notion of Made in Italy in different countries, and I can assure you that the interpretation of this Made in Italy brand changes from country to country. Now, in political terms, what we can say as for the luxury market, well, politics wants to promote made in Italy products. How can we do that? Well, it's a question of partnerships, not simply between the same stakeholders, but a combination of different supply chains. So we do not only speak about jewels, but also about other sectors, including tourism. Lucio is an expert in tourism. He was in charge of the tourist sector in Friuli, Venezia Giulia. Well, jewels are a sector which includes many words. I don't know if you know that in Paris we have had the first sections of presentations of the various maisons. And the jewellery market has a strong link with the sector of fashion. Well, in the past, it was just a chance for the fashion industry to be present in the jewellery market. So during the weeks of fashion, there is also a presentation of the collections of jewels. So the combination of these two worlds, and if you look at the history of the various maisons, you see that this is what is actually taking place. So tourism is another important sector. Well, digitalization will promote your sector if you do things well, because from small things you can go to a larger market thanks to digitalization. But in terms of tourism, as Giovanni said, within that we have a jewel, but a jewel can be something which can be shown, which can be displayed. We in the West are a bit cautious. We just choose big events. Well, it will be more and more common to show jewels, and the same applies to tourism. What's going to happen? Jewels will increasingly be combined with occasions of tourism in specific places. Of course, I'm referring to high-range situations, for example, gourmet restaurants or journeys to the Dolomites or in Venice. So that will be combined with a specific moment and a specific place. So for foreigners, it is very much related to the event that they are experiencing.
Shall we have a look at America, since Americans are back? Right, let's have a look at this market, which, as we said before, supports Made in Italy brand. They recognize the Made in Italy brand, they want it. But which are the keys to enter this market? Social inclusion, sustainability, customer care. These are all things we have talked about until today. So when I say the market is evolving in this direction, well, we have taken one reference market, and we can find these elements in any case. This is what you need. You need to communicate online. Consumers are changing. They're younger and younger. They need to know about sustainability. They need to track and trace what happens in the value chain. And of course, in these markets, there are also barriers that differ from market to market. Specifically on the American market, the biggest barrier, and this is not just for jewelry, but for everybody, is customer care, the after-sales service. The American market does not accept an after-sales service of a low level. They want a very advanced level of sales market. When you talk about spare parts, you must be very quick to provide them with spare parts. If they got a problem, you must react immediately. If you're not ready to react promptly, that's it, you're out the market. This does not apply specifically to jewelry, but it is a rule for all the markets. I have been a consultant for several companies, and the first hindrance to enter the American market is a capability to react promptly with an appropriate service. So if I want to enter the American market and I am a small workshop in Vicenza, what should I do? Well, I need to sort out this problem. Can I do that on my own? That's a question you should ask yourself. E-commerce. Is the e-commerce accelerating? Well, we have talked a lot about this. And this slide summarizes a whole series of drivers, technological drivers, that are actually pushing this type of communication. Technologies, business models, sustainability. Talking about technology, the digitization of the sale process, i.e. e-commerce, but also the representation is paramount. So it is also a retail issue, not just a communication issue. So the holographic representation. Personally, I have worked with a company, and 2 years ago, we investigated technology, which was very, very coarse. But in a short period of time, this technology has evolved enormously. So you can today show your jewels in the digital world, making them really look real. Then we have the virtual try-on. One of the first ones was Luxottica, allowing people to wear their glasses online. But this evolution is now characterizing the whole industry of jewelry and luxury. So you can see how that item looks on you, even if you're in the most remote place in the world. I mean, we may think that this is never going to happen because you would never do that. But only because you're used to an old model. That will change because generations will change. New generations are growing, and they grow in a digital environment, so that you will be used to this way of selling and buying. This will be the normal for them. And we need to adapt to this new normal. Sustainability and business models. Well, business models refer to renting and sustainability means recycling. This is working in fashion, and jewelry and fashion go hand in hand. Looking at the international market, the idea of renting jewelry is expanding. I mean, we're not only focused on the fact that I'm selling a piece of jewelry, I'm selling a moment in which the piece of jewelry is worn. So a paradigm shift that makes me think about a new model. And giving a person the opportunity to wear the jewel. Politically, if we focus on what is being done in this sector, the international aperture of small and medium enterprises is an important component of the political evolution and social evolution. So are small and medium enterprises ready to open up to international markets? And of course, this is something we need to tackle. Sustainability. Does this challenge affect our industry? Well, like every other sector today, this is a challenge that is significant for all of us, including this industry. From a technological viewpoint, we now have several evolutions: lab-grown diamonds, pets, and the possibility of making diamonds out of the ashes of dead pets. So there is a trend also, a technological trend. There is a possibility of using 3D printing to create jewelry. Well, since we have to speed up a little bit, let me tell you one thing. This is nothing new. It's been going on for some time. Just let me tell you the following. In 2005, Gold Lake, owned by a large cement-producing Italian groups, gave me a call and said, I have ethical gold. What should I do with it? How can I use it rather than putting it together with all the rest of gold, since I am obtaining this in a sustainable way from a river in Honduras, and since it is certified. So with high jewelry maisons in Italy and France, UK and the United States, we explored the possibility of developing lines of sustainable jewelry. That was 2005. And all doors were slammed in front of our face. Well, things changed in 3 years. In 2008, also thanks to the Kimberley process, the film Blood Diamonds, we entered a completely new age of sustainability. But this demonstrates that we need to hurry up, because this trend has been ongoing for quite some time, and we need to ride this trend. Yes, very quickly, let's close with the last point, branded or unbranded. The branded market is going to grow more and more. It will take market shares away from unbranded jewels and products. Therefore, regarding the different clusters, we can see that Arezzo and Valenza, the other two jewelry poles other than Vicenza, they're both doing something. They are organizing clusters, they're aggregating. Here we can see the Valenza area that is more related to tourism with a stronger brand, and in Arezzo, aggregations of companies aim at promoting and enhancing their product. What about Vicenza? Here we have a question mark.
Currently there is nothing, but hopefully you will be able to do something. Well, in the past, in some sectors, there were so-called aggregations. In 2000, 2003 or 4, we had the first aggregations of utilities in many regions. Emilia-Romagna created huge companies. Also, the Veneto region tried it, but it didn't manage to do that. So it is certainly worth doing that, but you have to do it in the right way. So this is our viewpoint, also from a historical viewpoint. Many thanks, Professor Gomiero and Dr. Carrera. Now the floor to Dr. Musto, who is connected from the Italian-Guatemalan Chamber of Commerce, who will tell us about Latin America and the jewel sector. Good evening. Well, we heard about the situation, and I will speak about the Central America and the Caribbean areas. Well, we carried out this survey because we wanted to highlight the change in the trends with reference to the import of jewelry products to our countries starting from 2020. So I will first describe the Guatemala market, which is the biggest market in Central America. The population is 17 million inhabitants. The population is similar to the situation of the rest of Central America. There is a certain share of the population who are wealthy population, wealthy people, and then there is a middle class which is growing. And we can see that from the building sector, and we see that there is a growth in the building sector thanks to the middle class. Well, in Guatemala and in Central American countries, we have a GDP growth which is pretty satisfactory, apart from the years of the pandemic. Guatemala has always been a very dynamic country. The lockdown here was only a partial one, and there is a strong presence of the private sector, and so it was not possible to leave people at home or close up people at home. So the economy actually continued to
Ovviamente uno degli indicatori più importanti in questo momento.
Well, one of the main indicators is inflation, which is growing in the world, and Guatemala is no exception. However, it's pretty under control. We're back to the levels of 11 years ago. So the inflation is 7.5%. That means that there has been an increase in the imports because Guatemala is mainly an importing country, and as far as exports are concerned, well, the trend is increasing. Now, going into the heart of the matter, for me, it's very important to show you this trend, that is the change in the import of precious and semi-precious metals starting from 2010. So let's say that from 2010 and 2016, the trend has been the same. You can see the imports, 245 millions, and then a strong growth after 2020. where we speak about millions of imports. So you see the target here in 2020, and then in 2021, more than 2 million of imports, and the trend is growing also for 2022. Well, what is special and specific for these countries is that imports mainly come from the US. Well, half of the imports come from the US. And this is due to the presence of big Italian companies which prefer to distribute their products by means of their subsidiaries or distributors in North America. This is an interesting fact because we should recall that there is an agreement between Central America and the EU envisaging the elimination of duties in these years. So duties, above all in the luxury market, were more or less 30%, and they will go to zero in the next years. So having direct imports from Italy would certainly favor final consumers. So we certainly have a margin of 50% of products imported, which are imported in a non-efficient way because they pay duties. Here we have a picture of 2022. No, let's go back to 2021, where we see the imports of jewelry products to Guatemala. Well, Italy is an important player, more important than represented by the figures, because the US is the first exporter of jewelry with more than $50 million, but we know that they actually export made-in-Italy products and products of other countries. So Italy is a leading country, and it is very present in Mexico. And Italy is a reference for many countries in the Caribbean, and Italy is the third country of origin of imported jewels. Now, Guatemala also produces jewels. It is a country which owns jade, so it is a raw material. So there is a first processing phase of jade. Here you see a list of the companies which distribute this product in Guatemala. It's mainly U.S. capital companies which deal with the mining step and also manufacturing of jade. And most of the products are exported, while part of it remains in Guatemala to be sold above all to tourists. So let's move to the next slide, where we can see what Guatemala actually imports. So $36 million imports of jewelry products, including fashion jewelry. And this value accounts for 40% of the potentials that we could have if we could have direct imports. So we're speaking about precious metals, semi-precious metals, silver objects, $11 million, and then other products which are less important. As far as the countries of origins are concerned, we see that 25% come from the US, 20% come from Italy.
Then, of course, we have Chinese products, with China being the #1 exporters, and custom jewelry plays a big part here. So there's a lot of import of custom jewelry from China. And then we got Thailand and Panama, which is just a transit market. So in Central America, we can see a growth in 2022. Growth is also envisaged for the next year. This is a pretty stable trend. Guatemala is one of the most stable countries in Central America and in Latin America at large. We've seen this in the past few years, and there is an indicator that indicates also the foreign exchange stability. The local currency has kept around 9 quetzales per dollar for 20 years. And in the last 10 years, actually, this currency has increased its value versus the euro. So the possibility of importing due to the strong currency and due to the fact that there are no duties is very appealing. Here you can see the different countries in Central America, and you can see the overall import of jewelry expressed in millions of dollars. Guatemala is the #1 country for imports, and I believe that in all these countries there is always a high percentage of products coming from the United States. This factor can be further improved, and much will depend on two elements. #1, information, dissemination of information. Importers and exporters must know of this free trade agreement between Italy and Guatemala, between European Union and Central America, and increasing the awareness of producers who usually prefer to ask their agents in North America to sell also in Central America, thereby missing significant opportunities that would make the whole transaction more efficient. Talking in general terms and opening up to the jewelry and custom jewelry industries, you can see here a very interesting representation referring to 2022 from January to November. And as you can see, we have a significant growth in the import of luxury items. So we have made use of the different article codes or item codes that we use for custom purposes. And together with Confartigianato Venice, we are going to provide you with more detailed information as well as some support in Central America with the presence of the Italian Chamber of Commerce in Guatemala. And in Vicenza this year, we have tried to deepen our knowledge about this. Right, I would like to make now a very quick overview of other countries in Central America and in the Caribbean, starting from the Dominican Republic, which is an island, a very interesting island. The population amounts to 10 million inhabitants, but there is a considerable touristic flow. Tourism comes from the whole of the Americas, as Europe, with many Italians as well, and a considerable number of Italian residents in the Dominican Republic. And this is another important element because the Italians in the community are opinion leaders who prefer to buy and distribute the Italian products. The Dominican Republic is a growing and expanding country with the GDP, per capita GDP, that is higher compared to the other Central American countries, with the exclusion of Panama, which is always a special case. And with the next few slides, I would like to pass the following message. The Dominican Republic is an important stepstone for assembling products. So we have a significant import of semi-finished products coming from Italy that are then re-exported to the United States. We need to know the details, but many of these products that are sold to the United States are the same that can be found also in Central America. So pay attention to this data, and I would be very glad, especially after this change, if you went back on them. All these figures have changed since 2020. So I believe that it is interesting for the jewelry sector of Vicenza to view this area of the world, since right now it is supplied in an inefficient way, predominantly from the US, missing out on logistical advantages and advantages in custom duties. So the figures I showed you regarding Salvador and Costa Rica are reflected in the economy and the import of these products. I don't want to bore you with more figures, but it is important for you that this area, Central America and the Caribbean, are countries that are particularly interested in luxury products, and this has been the trend in the last few years. And if we give them the attention they deserve, the Italian country and the Vicenza area, which is leading in this field, will be able to exponentially increase the export of finished products to this area. Thank you very much for your attention, and if you have any questions, please feel free to ask them. Well, thank you very much for being online. Let me ask you a question straight away. This exponential growth you showed with Guatemala, moving from 1.3 million to more than 2 billion in terms of import, what is this due to? No, we're talking about hundreds. So from $150,000 to 1.3 million. This growth is due to a different way of purchasing. Consumers who could no longer travel. In 2021, it was difficult to travel for Central American people. And many people could not travel because of the restrictions in the United States. So this has totally changed the purchasing habits. At the same time, importers have tried to get ready. They have prepared themselves, and local distributors have increased the presence of products in their local distribution. Thank you. Thank you very much. I would also like to ask you a very quick question. Your presentation shows a very interesting scenario for jewelry in Central America. Based on your research, which is the perception or the added value of the jewel or the made in Italy jewel in your countries? Well, for sure these products are leading. There's a lot of interest. Generally, the people who used to buy this product were high-income individuals, often traveling to the United States, spending the weekend in Miami, for instance, and buy in these industries. So that's where we had the biggest change. It was no longer possible to travel to the US with the precedent frequency. So it was necessary to act in a different way. These being the top-of-the-range products are also viewed as expensive. We could actually make them less expensive. And I believe that the big opportunity resides in the fact that we can have an open dialogue between the Italian producer and the Guatemalan distributor so that the product can get there with a better logistical itinerary and without custom duties.
Thank you, Dr. Musto. So we have another round of questions. Dr. Carrera, strategy, innovation. We heard about your activities. We heard that there is a cycle of webinars which has been launched starting from the 20th of February. Can I ask you about the program? Can you give us some ideas? Well, we carried out a survey, and then we have decided to present some notes about what we have discovered from this survey. Well, we worked in collaboration with Confartigianato. We will organize 7 webinars where we will focus on these topics: made in Italy, digital communication, sustainability, brand identity, retail, aggregation. Well, all these topics will be at the center of these webinars, which have already been set starting from the end of February until the beginning of April. We will have just online meetings on Monday, also to favor shops in Vicenza. And the objective is to train in order to change. That is, train the sector's operators in order to change, because there are huge opportunities out there. The market is going to grow, and it will grow for everybody, but the conditions for growth will be different from the past. So there are opportunities out there, but you have to be able to grasp those opportunities, and we will try to do some training and education and awareness. Of course, we'll try to spread the news. So many thanks, Dr. Carrera and Professor Gomiero. Now, Mr. Marangon, would you like to make some concluding remarks? Not only as the president of the association, but also as a stakeholder, as an operator. Well, I have to say that the topics described during this short meeting actually raise some comments. Well, I belong to the silver generation, and I confirm what Dr. Carrera said. The presentation presented just some pieces, some aspects of this analysis of this survey. But from that survey, we hear about new channels, digitalization, the jewel that can be rented. Well, are all things that actually raise some questions. Perhaps it's because I'm old, I don't know. Well, I think that jewels still belong to social life, and consumers look for that social life through jewels. And, well, we saw in a stand an influencer getting in touch with her 10,000 followers, a small number for an influencer. But the officer for digitalization told me that she was cleaning out the population of her followers on Instagram in order to have a targeted population of influencers. Well, I don't know the results of that direct online connection where the influencer talked to her followers. Well, digitalization is the future. This is true, but it belongs to other channels. Well, it's not enough to do e-commerce. Unfortunately, this is not the case. E-commerce is part of a strategy, and you cannot do without physical contacts, so much so that contacts with customers, final customers, well, perhaps are generated by social media, Instagram, chat, Facebook, TikTok, for example, which is very effective. But then that contact continues by means of messages or telephone calls, and there is an origin in the digital world, but then that relationship becomes physical. And very often we have physical visits to our companies, and that's really a comprehensive experience. Well, this is my personal opinion, of course. So I believe that in the next years, either because of the double-figure growth or for other reasons, we are faced with a sort of a chaos or a movement of flows of people, of money and ideas and strategies, channels. And the companies which will be able to remain in the center will then be able to achieve top results, while the ones which will remain at the borders will be sort of lost, will get lost. So this is my idea. The problem with our small companies is that apart and beyond each single figure, well, we should analyze all data in depth, and every activity is extremely complex. We need skills, analysis, designing, and then implementation of all the results that we take from these surveys. So companies should be able to bear the costs and then the implementation of all these ideas. So we necessarily need to aggregate companies. Well, I believe that today, more than ever, an association like ours, in a district like ours, has the duty to design a form of aggregation, support this type of aggregation, to find the money and the skills, like our two excellent speakers today, able to design a journey, to design a line, so that companies get in touch one with the other. Because often we have companies which perhaps are in the same district, but they cannot combine their forces. And if they could do that, they could certainly reach these difficult markets. So we need to put together all the forces, and you have to be very accurate, because if you have a good design, then you have to monitor and calculate the return and see whether there is a return according to the original idea. So once again, aggregation is not enough. We have to go a step further, so that this experience, also with the university that I think, the university, which has been a very important partner. And then we have to involve our companies, not only the representatives, the members of the various boards or the presidents. We have to involve our members so that they can talk one with the other and put together their excellent products and remedy to possible inefficiency. Only by so doing will we be able to achieve excellence and meet the requirements of the market, because people ask for top-level, extraordinary, made-in-Italy manufacturing. So we don't know how to face such requests. And one of the ways to go is certainly training and education. But also, we need to be able to identify the most profitable areas. So we should be able to cut unproductive arms and then make projects for the future.
Margins are not just there to go on holiday, but they must be used to relaunch our companies in the framework of internationalization. That's all. I believe I should stop here. Thank you very much. Thank you very much for being here today. And I hope that you're going to participate in these webinars that will take place in February, from the 20th of February onwards. And I hope that this meeting today was of interest for all of you, and you're taking home some food for thought. Thank you very much and enjoy your evening. Thanks to everybody.
Tutti chi